Yeah. All right. Dogate Andreker Yinishe Adonna E Nishinigi E Inde Nishe Irish Basha Chin Inde Dasha Che German Dasha Nali Akote Go E Tishli E Portland, Oregon Inasha Shema E Kathy Lindsay Woye Shaza E Del Ecker Wole. All right. So my name is Andrew Ecker, and my mother, Kathy Lindsay, my father, Dale Ecker, my mother's mother, Elva Gallegos, Apache woman from New Mexico. My mother's father, or my father's mother, Evelyn Beatty, Irish woman from Pennsylvania. My mother's father, Leroy Lindsay, Apache man from Arkansas. My father's father, Wayne Ecker, German and Algonquin from Pennsylvania. I have a daughter, Bailey, a son, Peyton, a beautiful, beloved fiance, Monica. I was incarnated into this body in Portland, Oregon, although I reside here in the land of the Akmel Atum, the Peepash, and the Maricopa in Phoenix, Arizona. So very grateful to be here with everyone. We are broadcasting live on Facebook as well. And I had a little interruption from the live going out. So yeah, hopefully that's the only glitch that we have here, and we can get going. So tonight we're discussing the Sacred Seven. This is the introductory webinar for those that would like to join in the 8-week process. So very excited to share with you this technology of self-identity that is really at the heart of many indigenous communities throughout the world, and is something that I found through my discovery into my own Native American heritage, through the practices of ceremony and understanding sweat lodge and talking circle, and various practices where the foundation of self-identity is really created through the ceremonial introduction process. I feel like this is very relevant for today. And it's something that I'm very excited about, as it alleviates us from much of the confusion of the illusion that the contemporary culture creates around self-identity, relational spirituality, and emotional intelligence. So those of you that stay with me to the end of the webinar will receive a free gift of the audio and the PDF copy of my book, The Sacred Seven. So let's get started. The path of the wholeness to self-identity. Generally, Monica is a part of this. She's my beloved fiance and is generally a part of the process of going through the 8 weeks. Tonight, she won't be here with me for this introductory, but she will be present during the 8-week journey. So tonight, you're going to learn the 7 containers of self-identity and how to incorporate and integrate these aspects of self. So we begin with the sacred child. This is found in the inside direction, the sacred feminine, which is in the below direction, the sacred masculine, which is the above direction, the east, which represents the sacred newness. This is our mother's mother. The south, which is who we are to the sacred family, and this is our father's mother in the south. And the west, which is the sacred community. This is our mother's father. And the north, which is the sacred elemental identity, and this would be our father's father. So each one of the aspects of the 3 spiritual directions are the internal process of self, and then we go into relational spirituality with the 4 outward directions. So the foundation of all relationships is inside of the Sacred Seven, and that's what makes this technology so exciting, is that it does create an understanding of yourself, and then that basically creates awesome relationships. And I can tell you that today, through living this technology and practicing through the group journeys, I have been able to optimize my own relationships and really live out a healthy experience. So a little bit about me. I'm an author of The Sacred Seven. I'm also a speaker, a business owner, have 3 successful wellness-based businesses in community development, personal empowerment, life and business coaching. I help people basically turn information into transformation. Owner of Drumming Sounds, Wellness Sourcing, and Sacred Seven, along with a couple other businesses as well. Basically, I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. So this is what we're doing now, working in a variety of different organizations, including keynote speaking engagements, corporate team building, corporate wellness programs, and music festivals. So the list is extremely long. Over the past about 10 years, facilitated roughly 4,000 wellness-based programs All of these programs are utilizing indigenous technologies to help people live better. And this is really where I feel kind of my expertise is in creating an ability to access these technologies without appropriating from specific cultures. And this is something that I feel we can really learn from in our contemporary lives, because the indigenous communities throughout the world had a way of living in balance. And still to this day, there are many communities that are living in relational balance and in harmony with one another. The science that is behind the indigenous technologies of self-identity and relational spirituality is really what we're applying in the Sacred Seven. It is a contemporary version, yet it is something that I feel is very profound and relevant for today. So a little bit about who I was before the Sacred Seven. Grew up in a home where both of my parents were addicted to drugs. My mother died of a cocaine overdose. My father from cirrhosis of the liver caused by hepatitis C. Myself, earliest memories, I can remember being with my mom, shoplifting with her to support her cocaine habit. As I grew into being a teenager, I was using heroin with my dad. I have 20 years substance abuse free. From that space of being involved in crime and drug culture, basically growing up with that inheritance, I did find my way to prison and served 3.5 years behind drug-related charges. The struggle that I was in prior to my spiritual awakening, which happened in prison, was real and generational. The trauma that was a part of my life was basically, what you can imagine a kid growing up with both of their parents addicted to drugs. These were some of the things that I went through: physical abuse, emotional neglect, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. Just the list goes on and on. Really, if it wasn't for the practice of the Sacred Seven and getting back to the indigenous technologies in my life, I don't know where I would be. I can tell you that fundamentally, people like myself generally don't make it to the level of working with billion-dollar corporations doing wellness programs and team building and leadership development. It's very rare for a person that has really been through the things that I've been through in my life to actually make it to the level of success that I have, not only in my family and my relationship with my daughter and my beloved fiance, but of course, in my business as well. And so I give you a little bit of background about the process, just to let you know that inside of the Sacred Seven, there is room for growth for anyone, whether or you're a successful business owner and entrepreneur, or you're living in a family where you're the head of the household and involved in all of the domestic affairs. This process of the Sacred Seven can benefit you no matter where you're at. And I'm really excited to share with you ways that we can begin to really fortify a culture together, a culture that is inclusive and creates an opportunity for all of us to live a better life. Oh, skipped a slide there. So the practice of transformation is something that's very dear to my heart. I feel that in transformation, we give ourselves the opportunity to come forward in intimacy and vulnerability. And in that authenticity, we find change. This is a part of the process of the Sacred Seven and is at the heart of all of the journeys that we facilitate. So the introduction and the perception of wholeness of self, I put the compass here to remind us of how the hyper focus can really create a narrative in our lives. When I was a little boy, I was in the 5th grade, and the DARE cops came into my school. I lived through the Reagan era and the Clinton era drug war policies. And of course, my parents being addicted to drugs, there was a lot of kind of suffering that made its way into my family. And I remember the DARE cops coming into our school with flags and guns, and it was a whole big production. And they said to this group of 5th graders, if you have one drug addict parent, you're 50% more likely to become a drug addict. Well, in my childish mind, I wasn't a mathematician by any count, but I did know what 50 and 50 meant, that I was 100% an addict. And this idea of me being genetically flawed created what I like to call a metaphysical architecture of self-identity, which really led to captivity and density of suffering that density of suffering began to create a gravity in which my behaviors were swept into. And I began to live up to that kind of prophecy that was put into my life. So there are many influences in our contemporary culture that can create a disconnect from really the design of the optimization of self-identity. This remembering is something that's extremely powerful for all of us, because we do begin to remember that innately we are a child and a grandchild. And the comfort of that creates a quality in sacred space, and it also leaves a legacy to the next 7 generations. So we begin with the child within, and this is the inside place. And for those that have gone through the journeys and worked with me one-on-one in consulting and coaching, this has been one of the places in which we are really optimizing that point of view. And we begin with the child because the child holds the power of faith, the mystic, that vibration that comes in that says, oh, you know what, there are imaginary friends, and they're not just imaginary, they're real to me, and I'm able to talk to them. This idea of creating a higher power, this comes from the child. That's why the master said to come to faith like a child, because if you think about the incarnation of the child comes into this world with nothing more than faith. It must rely on the faith of being able to manifest its food, being able to manifest its shelter. All of this comes from the power of the inner child. And when we begin to create a relationship with the inner child, we begin to give ourselves permission to come forward in life with that power of faith. The reflection of the inner child holds that space. And faith is something that can lead us in all of the other aspects of the Sacred Seven. It is a very tangible gift to give ourselves permission to allow to come forward in our lives. This mystical energy of transformation also resides in play and intuition and in the knowing. The child comes into this world knowing that it will survive, that it's free to dance, that it's free to embody the goodness of life. This is what the remembering process of working with the inner child. And each journey, we grant a week to the development of all of these containers of self-identity. A full week of challenges and transformational information that comes forward in the process. So next we go to the below space, and this is really the place of darkness. It is the birthing place, and it is represented in the feminine. So as I call forward my name, I'm calling forward the inner child, and now I'm calling forward my mother's name. And in doing that, I'm reflecting upon the womb. I'm reflecting upon the place of darkness, the place in which the seed goes into in order to be birthed. This is what we get when we begin to relate to the idea of the cycles of the feminine. The feminine holds the circular thinking, the cycles of life. This is the process of really understanding what it means to have a feminine aspect. And this is important because the fluidity of gender comes in when we understand that we all have a child and a feminine aspect. It grants us the ability to understand the emotional intelligence, to understand the womb. It is the sacred feminine that gives us the opportunity to kiss the boo-boos for ourselves. Many of us in the disconnect from the feminine had resentment create the idea of how we were to create an opportunity for our own feminine aspect to manifest. We came to our mom and we said, "Mommy, kiss my boo-boo," and mom didn't have time for us. She was busy in the contemporary culture. Therefore, a resentment began to create. And when we go into the week of challenging ourselves to develop the sacred feminine, we access that. We access it through the technology of sound, through visualization, through guided imagery, and we begin to unlock the density and the barriers from optimizing this part of ourselves. So having the ability to nurture your inner child gives you the wellness of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a legacy that we can leave to our children. And by allowing for them to understand the Sacred Seven and to get this practice and process into our lives, we are really optimizing what it means to be a human being. And we're remembering the power of sitting in the space of the earth, imagining ourselves again and living again as earthlings. This is what the Sacred Seven and the knowledge of this indigenous practice optimizes in all those that come to the journey and begin to live out the practice of the sacred seven in their everyday. So next we go to the divine masculine. And again, each one of these containers that I'm going through very quickly, we will spend a week on in the journey. We will give you an opportunity to not only sit with me and Monica as facilitators, but also the group. And the group is an essence of journeying together that really brings an enhancement. It's something that actually begins to formulate within the collective consciousness, and it gives an access point to other feedback inside of the space. When I'm working with a person one-on-one through the Sacred Seven, there is an opportunity to go a little bit deeper than you would in the group, but yet the group journey is a very phenomenal practice for all of us. So we devote a week to each one of these containers, whether it's a one-on-one coaching opportunity, consultant work with myself, or you're actually diving into the group setting. We are going to spend a whole week of challenges inside of the divine masculine. And this is where we begin to create the optimization of the linear. The masculine in our contemporary culture does have a lot of toxicity, and this is because of the perpetuation of the patriarchy. The patriarchy has created an imbalance in the masculine that we don't have to abide by that, but becoming aware of that knowledge gives us a space of sovereignty. And when we come back to this idea of balancing the circles and the cycle of the feminine with the linear, this is, you'll find a lot in coaching and a lot of high performance professionals, this idea of next level or leveling up. You'll constantly hear, I'm in my higher self. Well, when we step into the linear conceptualization of reality, we're activating the masculine, yet there can be a perpetuation of putting our lower self in the corner with this idea of punishment. And this is where the balance of the Sacred Seven really brings us into optimizing our lives and to really challenge us to flow fluidly through the feminine, the masculine, and the inner child to each one of these perceptions of self, which create balance and the formation of sacred geometry. The divine masculine does give us the opportunity to step into problem solving. When we step into the linear conceptualization of reality, we're going from problem to solution. And this process is important for us to understand as we step into the fluidity of the masculine, yet with the power of the nurturing and faith combined with that, we do create a sort of symmetry that is very extremely powerful. So the three spiritual directions, again, inside, below, and above, these three spiritual directions create a form of the Trinity. The Trinity in the sacred geometry is the triangle. The triangle is the form of energy that has withstood the test of time inside of the pyramids. This form of sacred geometry, when applied to self-awareness, gives us the understanding of how to step into the child fluidly, how to step into the feminine fluidly, and of course, how to understand the masculine. This powerful understanding of self-identity will optimize your behaviors, and it will also help you in your life live in relationship again. This indigenous technology really helps us get back to being earthlings, get back to being children. Next, we're going to go into the four physical directions, but I'd also like to give a little bit of history of how we got to this place. You know, we have a contemporary culture that is hyper-focused on the workforce, and many parents even take on this role inside of the family. And that's one of the things that we offer is a family journey where you can take either the family of your business up to 20 people, or you can take the idea of your family, your personal family, up to 20 people on a journey into the Sacred Seven, which me and Monica will facilitate. But realizing that inside of your family setting, that you can begin to mold and create the optimization of earthlings, that you yourself can begin to step into this practice and you can begin to leave this legacy for your children. I have seen this vision of families gathered around mountains, gathered around rivers, lakes, and oceans, and introducing themselves to the planet again. Remembering, there was a time inside of us, there was a remembering that allows for us to see into our past and to know that we once gathered around the fire and we introduced ourselves as the son of, the grandchild of, the daughter of, the child of, the grandchild of. And in this idea of connection back to the land and our ancestral lineage, we begin to live out our fulfillment. Very powerful technology of self-identity. And as we go into the form of relational spirituality now, with the four physical directions, the east, the south, the west, and the north, we now begin to live out that practice. We have formulated the Trinity inside of the feminine, the masculine, and the child, and now we're going into how we relate to the world around us. So there are four containers of self-identity that hold the keys to abundant relationships. And these are within the directions of the east, the south, the west, and the north. And they're found in the ceremonial practice of introducing our grandparents. So we introduce Grandmother East, and she's the mother's mother. She guides us in new relationships. Now, what's really amazing is that the mother's mother is also who you are to all the new relationships, but she also holds the space of your actual clan identity. So this is the womb that your mother came through, and this is actually who you really are. You know, the patriarchy creates the identity that's associated with the father's father. When we come back to a matrilineal, matriarchal system, we begin to understand ourselves through the womb of our mother. And the grandmother East is that space in which we can look at actually who we are as people. This very powerful form of self-identity gives us an opportunity to see ourselves as a new creation. And in that newness, we give ourselves the dawn. We give ourselves the awakening of the rays of light that allow us to step into new relationships in love, allow us to step into new relationships in business, in community, and also the earth herself. This is the origin womb, the mother's mother. So next we go into Grandmother South, and this is the father's mother, again, staying in that idea of the matriarchal lines, staying in that form of the feminine. We're reminded of who we are to our family relationships. And what's so empowering about this practice is it does allow for us to see ourselves again as a member of a family. So many people in our contemporary culture look at their family and they see a disconnect. They've taught themselves to believe that they aren't their family, that they have nothing to do with their parents, that they have nothing to do with their grandparents. How did this seed of destruction get into our minds? It is the idea of creating and formulating a workforce, the hyper focus of our government, the hyper focus of our industry, the industrialization disconnect us from the earth. This is remembering how to live in the empowerment, the magic, the mystic vibration, the spiritual realm of existence. And by honoring our grandparents, we're allowing ourselves to practice how to be in relationship again. And Grandmother South holds that for us. In the South, we awaken the process of saying, this is my family, and I am going to live in authenticity, because there is reciprocity there. The teacher and the student become fluid, and we begin to understand that the youngest member of the family is a teacher. The oldest member of the family is a student. This process of remembering again how to live in balance, how to live in harmony. This is what it means to be with Grandmother South. So next we go to the grandfathers, and the first of the grandfathers is Grandfather West, and this would be your mother's father. And this is the sacred community, sacred container of community, and how we activate ourselves in community is really profound, because community, of course, holds the space that we choose to manifest, our friendships, our church, our band, our business ideas. All of this is within the container of community. And it can be a very activated space because, of course, this is where we step out and we say, okay, I have this thing that I want to accomplish. And in accomplishing this, I'm going to help these people. I'm going to serve in the capacity of community. This is where we activate that space, and we begin to mold the metaphysical architecture, and we begin to displace the energies that no longer serve the optimization of sacred community. This is the practice of what it means to be in relationship to Grandfather West. Now we step into Grandfather North, and this is the last container of self-identity because it does hold an etherical understanding of how to basically step into relationship again with the elements. You know, for many of us, looking at the elements, they can be this kind of etherical energy, but yet they're very tangible. And as we begin to relate to them as a relationship, we can actually begin to see the value of what it means to be in relationship to the mountain, to the trees, to the air, the water, the fire, the earth, gravity, time, and what it means to have a relationship with a higher power, with spirit. This is the energy of the seven elementals, and how they begin to activate themselves in a relational manner is upon our reflection. Our willingness to step in to create empathy and exchange with the power of the elements. This is what happens when we get to the last container of self-identity within the sacred seven. So the relationships of these sacred containers of self-identity bring infinite source and purpose. The relationship to prayer, meditation, grounding, the animals, the trees, the spiritual beings. This is all a part of these seven sacred containers of self-identity. Now, there's a lot of deep concepts that I'm sharing with you tonight. And these concepts, of course, will have an impact on your life. It will begin to optimize you just by stepping into those neural pathways. I feel like we're even releasing some of the captivity already. Now, I do want to ask you a question, and this question pertains to your own personal journey and how you can begin to impact the world. So if you knew that by dedicating, oh, missed that slide there for a second, sorry. If you knew that by dedicating just a couple of hours of your week to the processing of your relationships, you would make a long-lasting change in yourself, your family, your community, and the planet, would you prioritize that time and make your best effort to transform your life? And if you knew by participating you would be helping others to make the same effort in transforming culture, would you want to join that culture that promotes restoration? And I know that you're the type of person that says yes to those questions. You want to be in service to your family, your community, and the planet. And thank you so much for joining in this process and being here with us tonight. So the journey begins with your decision to take intentional responsibility over your life and to join with a community of people called to share the experience of the Sacred Seven. We've designed a fulfilling challenge that will equip you to live your optimal life. So it's an 8 weeks of deep experiential transformation and accountability, community, and a personal focus with a challenge to show up in service to others. So this process of showing up in service to yourself gives you a space to now serve others. And this way of understanding that service creates self-awareness and the optimization of your own self. So here's a little bit of the testimonials of the people that have joined us in the journey. This is Carol Drum from Texas. Now that I am learning who I am and what I need, I have finally given myself permission to love again. I am learning things about my inner child that I have hidden and not let her heal the way she should have been. I am now listening to someone whom I had forgotten and I couldn't no longer hear. I am learning all the layers. I have gone to a deeper state of meditation and even a trance state. This is just the beginning. And Cynthia Gutierrez from San Diego, she wrote, I really enjoy the Sacred Seven journey because the process helped me connect with my family in ways that I didn't imagine and heal old wounds. I am so fortunate to have experienced some of Monica and Andrew's heartfelt offerings. In the group, I always felt seen, heard, and respected. And this is from Kimberly Dawn in California, and very powerful experience. She was actually practicing with our group and brought her daughter into the space. And it was so amazing because I got to connect deeply with both of them and really had so much fun seeing a family transform their awareness of self, their emotional intelligence, and their relational spirituality. So she writes, it was such a valuable series of sessions connecting us deeper to our birth families. All of mine are in heaven, so it was very deep connecting, rekindling for me. Joining me in this work was my 16-year-old daughter, who really connected with her spirit family as well. It was such a deep work for both of us. And through opening these containers and exploring them, I have experienced a great amount of emotional freedom and understanding. to these family members in relation to myself. I have since experienced more love and forgiveness that has catapulted my healing process, bringing me great peace and balance. So happy to bond with my daughter during these sessions too. Sacred Seven is an essential process for life. I strongly recommend this work. And Suzanne Peterson from Phoenix, Arizona. Andrew and Monica make you feel seen and heard during and after each journey. Their combined knowledge and experience of the work guides you through the 8 weeks of sacred work. The Sacred Seven is a journey any person working on self-awareness / self-identity should experience. So we begin the process with the digital book. This is a copy of the Sacred Seven, the audio book, a one-on-one session, 8 Zoom sessions, Facebook private challenges, and what we put on a price tag for the group sessions is $1,040 for that coaching series. Now, what we're offering is a group of a minimum of 10 people at $100 exchange or $25 per week. This basically gives everybody an opportunity to afford the space. Myself, when we do personal one-on-one sessions, the price tag is considerably higher because I'm spending more time with those individuals. We also offer a family course in which we do the practice for your group of 20 or less. And that process is available as well. If you would like to direct message me, I'm open to facilitating that space for you. Our guarantee to you is if you are not totally satisfied with the course at the end of the 8 weeks, we will give you your money back. We just ask that you let us know what we can do better to serve community. So this is the link to the actual Square site in which you can pay for the course securely, and that will also be in the link below. Thank you so much for joining me tonight for this description. Also, to let everybody know, if there are those that cannot afford the $20 per week, we do have an opportunity for you to do a work trade. If money is just unavailable for you and you don't have the ability to open up a lemonade stand, because it is very affordable in the group sessions. That's just my little joke. But money isn't always the best trade, and we do have space to give you opportunity to do a work trade. Although you will be held to a higher level of commitment than all of the other participants, and we do have several sorts of challenges that you must reach in order to participate in the work trade, but it is available. I believe really greatly in reciprocity, and that this information and my time is very valuable. So if you do want to do something outside of a cash exchange, we also have that available for everyone. So thank you so much for joining me tonight for this introduction to the Sacred Seven. I would love to share a prayer, a blessing into your life here as we close this up. And we'll just ground ourselves, taking a deep breath in and feeling the earth underneath us, expanding our consciousness into the heavens, expanding our hearts together, meeting in this place of commitment to a culture of awareness and inclusivity. Father, Mother, Creator, Source, we thank you for this opportunity to be in this prayer place. I thank you for the right people, those that have been called from the east, the south, the west, and north, to join this experience, to be a part of this Sacred Seven commitment and also this Sacred Seven journey. And I thank you for all those that need to have the space of stepping into the individual sessions, and all those that would want us to take their family through the space, and all those that will join with those individuals from the community in the group share. Thank you so much for bringing people here from the east, the south, the west, and north, and allowing for us to facilitate and service this practice. Beauty above, beauty below, beauty beside, beauty in front, beauty behind, beauty within. I am, we are made beautiful again. Aho. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I give thanks to all of you. This has been a really great opportunity, and I hope to meet you here for our next group session. Thank you.